This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Hornady. They make some of the best, most accurate, dependable ammo on the planet. No matter if you're coyote hunting or plink and steel or hunting big game out west or even going to Africa, they make a bullet or an ammo just for you. Some of the most accurate and dependable ammo on the planet. Also, check out my podcast with Steve Hornady and learn about ammo as well as their story and some funny anecdotes from Steve. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Cryptic, cryptic.com. Check them out. Now, Cryptic is a cool company. Not only are they God-fearing patriots and they're veteran-owned, but also they make unbelievable gear. No matter if you're hunting in the deserts of Sonora all the way up to sheep hunting in the Great North, they have a layer or layers for you. Plus, they have a bunch of cool patterns. Everything from Obscura all the way to Highlander, everything that you would need no matter where you hunt typically or that next great adventure. So check them out, cryptic.com. All right.
Rolling.
So I'm going to do an opening today. Typically, I do an opening after we had this conversation, but I'm going to wing it because I'm with the wingmen. Todd Helms today, special guest. Todd is the head of our wingman brand here at Eastmans. He has a very interesting background, not only, as a kid growing up, but also some of the things that Todd has done in life is pretty interesting. Everything from growing up on a reservation in the UP of Michigan to going to school, and also some stuff that has happened in Wyoming once you moved here. I'm thinking braids and that type of stuff.
Oh. Technically, that was in Montana.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
I guess it was in Wyoming. Barely.
Yeah, barely. So, special guest today, we're going to talk about Todd and who Todd is. Introduce you guys to our wingman brand a little bit. If you are a wing shooter or an upland shooter or anything to do with waterfowl or birds, even we do turkeys and all kinds of stuff.
Everything. Yeah.
Check out the Wingman podcast, the Wingman video series. Great content that you're providing via emails, and not only tips and tactics, but great stories. And it's just a lot of fun. We shared a hunt this year in Nebraska, a goose hunt. So we'll talk a little bit about that.
Cool.
So Todd, welcome to my podcast. I've been on yours a couple of times.
Yep.
And you've never been on mine.
Well,
so here we are.
Thank you for finally having me. I was starting to feel left out.
That's really why we did it.
Yeah, exactly. He's the last one. We got to get this done.
Actually, I think it's just timing because you're busy when I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm busy when you are.
That's exactly right. You and I are like ships in the night sometimes. In the fall, I'm here.
That sounded really gay.
Oh, maybe. It's right. In the fall, when you're out hunting and hosting hunts, I'm usually here in the office because on top of what I do with Wingmen, I'm the editor and the written group lead. Yeah. And so I'm busy, making sure we have lots of content for the magazines, for the journals. And then, when you're at shows, I'm in a duck or goose blind someplace. Yep. So it's kind of hit or miss.
That's why we do these in the spring after turkey season.
Yes.
And before the summer tack event kicks off, and that's where we're at right now.
You talk about it, and we used to have like slower times.
Right.
Not anymore. The whole year in this company is busy, whether it's wingman stuff, production, or going places, or Eastman stuff, or it's crazy. People ask, "Oh, how's it going? What are you up to?" And I'm like, I don't really have the time to give you a list.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that the COVID disaster created is we shut down shows for that year,
right?
2 years, but we were allowed to do it outside, and so everybody moved and shifted to stuff in the summer. Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and the TAC events and all that stuff shifted to doing stuff in the summer, and then it all got debunked, and they allowed us to do shows again, but they never closed the summer stuff. So we now have a winter show season and a summer show season, which I'll be in Big Sky in a couple of weeks judging the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation World Champion Calling Contest. I haven't done that. That used to be in the winter.
Yeah, you used to do
that in Salt Lake.
Exactly, you used to do that at Salt Lake, and it's crazy. It's honestly, it's an awesome time to be a hunter.
It is,
because there's always something to do. whether it's actual hunting or hunting related, you can always be immersed in hunting.
Yep.
And it's fun.
Yep. So let's get into who Todd Helms is. Childhood.
This will be a short story.
Yeah, right. Was that your inseam? No.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Michigan. Let's talk about that. Originally your family's from Michigan, right? Like,
yeah.
I've heard you talk about your grandfather. That coffee is really hot.
It looks that way.
Yeah, about burned my hand just taking the lid off, and I just took a big gulp of it.
Yeah. How's that feel?
You ever eat hot pizza and the top of your mouth's burned?
Yeah. I won't take a sip to prove you right. I'll drink my cold coffee.
So, growing up in Michigan, family's originally from Michigan?
Yep. Grandparents, aunts, uncles. I don't have any grandparents left on my side. I got a lot of aunts and uncles and cousins still there, but
in the UP?
No, everybody's in the lower peninsula, kind of central lower. We moved to the upper peninsula when I was a baby. I think I was 6 months old. My dad was an educator, and my whole family, a lot of people in my family were educators. And he took a high school principal's job in a little town at the base of the Keweenaw Peninsula called Baraga. And that was Baraga sits on an Indian reservation, or right there close to one. And then we kind of moved around a little bit as Dad worked his way up and became a superintendent, and ended up spending about 10 years over on the east end of the UP in a little town called Brimley. And that was butted up right next to an Indian reservation. I didn't technically live on the res, but half the school was native and half was white kids.
Right.
So it was a unique way. It was a unique way to live and to grow up. It's kind of interesting. I just thought it was normal. It was just like, yeah, this is just how everybody lives. It was just kids doing kid stuff. And you start talking to people that didn't grow up that way, and it's very unique. It was a very unique. It created a very unique perspective for me, and some good, some bad, but it was, I wouldn't trade it. Wouldn't go back.
It's funny you bring that up. My dad said this a lot, that him growing up, he grew up spending all summer in a sleeping bag,
yeah,
in the mountains or in the North Country or whatever, and he thought everybody did that. And
right.
I think that is just part of childhood. We all think our childhood is normal, and then we grow up in our 20s and 30s. And I don't know if it's because you get really good friends and you talk, that type of stuff, or if you just start getting your own perspective, you realize what I did when I was a kid is weird. And it was who I made me today,
right.
But it is unique to me, or unique to my small circle of friends.
Yeah, and we all have that. It's not. Oh, it's just Todd's story or Mike Eastman's story. We all have those unique experiences, and I just thought that part of a school graduation ceremony was included Native culture stuff.
Yeah,
and not everybody has dances and passes the pipe around, and it's, I don't think they probably do that in the school anymore, but yeah, it's unique and shapes cool. You. And it was very rural upbringing too. That part of Michigan, Michigan's like a lot of states. There's the part that everybody thinks about is obviously like Detroit.
Right.
And that it's a lot like Colorado in the sense that the bulk of the population lives in a very small geographic area. And the rest of the state's very, very rural, especially the Upper Peninsula. And I grew up, I laugh because moving to Wyoming, a lot of folks were like, man, it's the middle of nowhere. There's nobody out there. I'm like, yeah, it'll be just like where I grew up, except with less water and fewer trees.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I love the rural lifestyle. I love living in Wyoming for sure.
So I've met Big Jake, that's your dad,
yeah,
a couple times. He's a great guy. He comes out here hunting and has been in the magazine and on TV and stuff. But so did he instill that hunting culture that, you lived in rural UP, and did he instill that, or was he pretty busy and you were, influenced by grandparents or uncles, or how did that work?
All of it.
Okay.
Yeah, all of it. Dad was the formative. He was the one that, spent the bulk of time with us because we didn't live around family. But I hunted and fished with my dad a lot. hunted and fished with my grandfather. I had one grandfather growing up. My dad's dad died when my dad was like 18 years old. But Dad was busy, being a school superintendent. He was a lot of meetings, a lot of travel, a lot of things where he wasn't around, but he offset that so well where we used to laugh. All my friends, everybody hated it because he'd come to the classroom door and he'd just go, "I want to see you now." And you were like, "What did I do?" Especially by the time you hit high school and he'd do that.
And everybody else is like,
and he'd do it to my friends too, and my brother's friends. And we all laugh about that. He would just come and get you and be like, "Oh man, I hate it when he does that." The superintendent comes and drags you out of class. Small schools, obviously, right? But most of the time when he did that, it was because he was springing us to take us hunting or fishing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He'd just come and it happened a lot when he'd been gone at a meeting in downstate in like Lansing or something at the state capitol. He'd been gone for 5-6 days. He'd come back and you'd be in school it'd be like a Wednesday afternoon, and he'd come and spring you, and you just go
playing hooky with the superintendent.
Exactly.
So your brother, how much younger is he?
He's 3 years younger than I am.
Okay.
Yep.
So you guys spent a lot of time beating the woods together.
Oh man, there were so many times. I think back on the Wingman video that we filmed, the duck hunt we filmed with my dad and my brother, was one of my favorite videos that we've ever done. And even if it wouldn't have been a video, it would have been one of my favorite hunts we've ever done.
Was that the family
Yep,
tradition?
the family, I think it's called the family duck hunt or family tradition, something like that, on the Wingman YouTube channel. And it was awesome, but it was just going back. It was a chance to go back and do things that we don't get to do very often anymore. My brother lives in Iowa. He's a funeral business owner. He owns funeral homes. He's a mortician. He does kind of a one-man band type thing. And my folks live on his farm, on my brother's farm in Iowa. My brother and I moved to Wyoming shortly after my brother moved to Iowa. And, we met our wives and started having families. And my parents are sitting back in Michigan, a 2.5 day drive from Wyoming and a long day's drive from Iowa, thinking, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
We want to be around our grandkids. And so they looked around, and my brother at that time was starting to become a business owner, and obviously he's not going to go anywhere. He's in that community there in Decorah. And so that was the safe bet for them. I was a teacher at the time. I was in education. I was a teacher, English teacher and a coach. And I'd bounced around a little bit in Wyoming at that point.
So before we go to that.
Yeah.
So did you start, you graduated college, but you actually have a master's degree.
I have a master's degree.
The only one in the office that does.
Curriculum
the only one
and
in the
instruction.
office dumb enough to go that many years in school. Well, I shouldn't say that. I went that many years, but
there's a lot of people that go to college that are called doctors.
I had this bad habit of taking falls off.
Yeah.
So I really only went spring semester for like 3 years. But did you go directly from school to Wyoming? Was that your first teaching job, or did you teach? It
was my first teaching job. I kind of took a roundabout route to teaching. I went to school, and my bachelor's degree is actually in criminal justice.
Oh, wow.
With an English minor. And I walked smack into a hiring freeze in the state of Michigan.
Ooh.
And was pre-hired by a couple different agencies and was kind of sitting on my thumbs. And I started substitute
teaching. Were you going to be a cop?
Yeah. I was going to either be a state trooper or Department of Corrections, be a prison guard, with the idea that you work your way up into administration eventually. Go get a public administration master's or something and follow in my dad's administrative footsteps. Mm-hmm. And I started substitute teaching at that time. I was working sporting goods retail at Gander Mountain at the time. Wow. Yeah. And just started subbing and realized, man, I love being in the classroom. I love teaching. And that's the best thing about what I still get to do through the Wingman platform, especially.
I thought you were talking about teaching me the English language.
Well, that's true. That's true too. Worst people I've ever had.
True.
We won't get into that.
Not one of my strengths, the English language is.
And that's okay. But it was kind of a circuitous route, and ended up out here with went back to school after all of that. And the master's degree was the quickest route to get my teaching certification. So that was why I did it the way I did it. And yeah, moved straight to Wyoming. It was either Wyoming or Alaska. I pulled a 2-season stint as a commercial fisherman in Alaska on Kodiak Island, and really thought I wanted to be up there. And then after the second year of living literally remote in bush Alaska on Kodiak, I realized I like to roam too much.
You're stuck on an island.
You're stuck on an island, or you're stuck in the interior someplace, or you're stuck in Anchorage or Fairbanks, and you kind of need roads or an airplane.
Yeah.
And so I looked around, and at the time, Wyoming was paying very well, paying their teachers very, very well. And I thought, yeah, man, I've never even been to Wyoming, but
it's either Alaska or Wyoming, both remote, except one has roads in and out.
Yeah, exactly. And that was kind of what I settled on. And I'd always been fascinated and in love with the West.
So, first job wasn't exactly it was in Wyoming, barely.
Western Wyoming snobs over here.
No, but it wasn't like the traditional. It's not like you moved to Jackson or
no.
What a lot of people look at Wyoming and they think the Tetons, or they think, wide open spaces, the I-80 corridor, with lots of antelope and nothing. But
the whole state
straight.
Looks like the I-80 corridor. If you're listening to this, the whole state looks like that.
Yes. So, but first place is in Hewlett, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, little town, right up by Devil's Tower in the northeast corner of the
Black
state.
Hills.
Yeah, on the Wyoming side, they call it the Bear Lodge. And on the South Dakota side, it's the Black Hills. But it's the same formation. It's the Black Hills. And it's beautiful country. It afforded me a lot of opportunity to get – Hewlett's a tiny town. I think I made it – When I moved in there, when I took that job, I think I made it 410 people, and they never
like
did.
100 kids in a school.
Yeah,
the whole school.
Oh, you're talking graduating classes of 8 kids,
wow.
10 kids. The biggest class to ever go through that school I had as juniors and seniors, and there was 24 of them, I believe.
Wow.
Just a small, and there's a lot of that in Wyoming.
Yeah.
There's a lot of small rural communities. It was great because it got my feet wet in Wyoming. Because anytime you move to a different place entirely, you got to meet new people, and you're going to meet new things, get things figured out. Even the snow in Wyoming is different than it is in Michigan. The snow here is slippery, and it's harder to drive in. It's harder to even walk on. And you don't think about little things like that. Mm-hmm. I think if I would have came directly to Powell, where we are now, I probably would be dead by now.
We'll get to the braids in a minute. No,
all this big country that we have around us that we love. I would have had my bear encounter experience from Alaska. But those bears, those big Kodiak brown bears, are a lot different than our grizzly bears
big,
here.
Giant bullies. They're just big beasts.
Yeah.
Our bears are bullies.
They're unpredictable, but they're not as aggressive as these ones we have. And I probably would have, jumped on a horse and somewhere and in reality gone off a trail someplace, and because I would have wanted to explore all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'd have learned some lessons the hard way probably.
Yeah. So English teacher in Hewlett. Basketball coach, right?
Yeah. Track coach, basketball coach, pretty much done it all. That's the thing about Wyoming small schools is you wear a lot of hats, and you just got to be willing to cowboy up and do the job that needs to be done.
So you spent, Hewlett is a great place for wildlife recreating. It's different than here.
It's different. Yep.
But it's got a lot of wildlife. It's got a lot of hunting opportunities, a lot of fishing opportunities. Was that one of the things that bring you to this area or that area in Wyoming? Or was it just that was the only job you could find?
No, it was really interesting because the job market in Michigan was, as you can imagine, was incredibly competitive.
Yeah.
And I got looking at jobs in Wyoming and scheduled some interviews before I even came out here. Had a list of places I knew there were openings, and I kind of went around to those. I pulled into Sundance, Wyoming, which is where the central office is for that school district. Walked in to apply for the job, drop off a resume, and the gal said, well, the Hewlett principal's there. If you're planning on going up there, he could probably interview you. I'll call him right now. Sure. And it's not far. It's like 35 miles up there. And it was cool. But I went up, I interviewed, and I was offered the job in I think the interview lasted 10 minutes. And I was offered a job. I'm like, I haven't even been in the state 24 hours and I have a job. It was crazy. So that was really cool. But I had all these other places where I had an interview scheduled in Powell, right where we're not in this office, obviously, but where we're sitting today with the school district here. And I rolled into Powell a few days later for the interview. I told the principal in Hewlett, I have another obligation. I need to go do this interview. Can you please wait? And he was very patient with me and said yes. And so I came over here, and it was one of those June days that we're coming up on where it's dreary and cloudy and you can't see anything. Mm-hmm. It's like 0-0. There's the ceiling's right on the deck. And on the map, you look at a map of Powell and Cody, and you're like, it's surrounded by mountains. It's going to be gorgeous.
Right.
And I got here, and it was just farm fields. It was rainy farm fields. You couldn't see anything. And I was like, this isn't the image of the West that I had in my brain. The
Rockies would be a lot more rocky.
Exactly. John Denver's full of crap, man. That was exactly what happened. And I walked out of the job interview in Powell feeling like I bombed it. I was like, there's no way. And my dad had come with me on the trip. He was retired at that point, didn't have anything going on. And he's like, well, I'll go with you. I'll take a road trip out west. So he was with me. We're driving into Cody to get lunch. And I'm talking through scenarios. And he's like, well, what's God telling you?
Yeah.
What's God putting in your ear? Putting on your heart? And I said, man, the Hewlett job. And of course, it didn't help that we got there. It's green over there, and the springtime looks gorgeous. Oh, it's unreal over there. This walked into, at that time, it was the Wyoming Rib and Chop. Now it's the Cody Steakhouse.
Right.
And as I'm walking in, my flip phone rings. Yeah, this is a long, long time ago. Flip phone rings.
Yourself.
Yeah. And it's the principal from Powell. And he offers me the job in Powell.
You're like, oh no.
And I had just called the principal in Hewlett and accepted the job there.
Wow.
It's a God thing.
Yeah.
100%. And I apologized profusely, and it was no big deal. And here we are all these years later. I'm raising a family in Powell.
Yeah.
And the really funny thing is, after the job interview, before we went to lunch at Cody, we came here, and I renewed my Eastmans subscription.
Actually,
your dad was the only one in the office because it was like lunchtime.
Yeah. He was wandering around going, is there anybody here? Does anybody even work here?
Yep. And so I'm all excited. I'm meeting Ike Eastman, and I'm in the Eastman's office, and it's like, oh my gosh. I've been watching the TV show forever, and I've been a subscriber for, and it was like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
And now here we are today. I'm sitting here with you recording a podcast.
That's a crazy story. How I was just talking to Sam Sohold on a podcast previously, and he talks about obstacles and taking those as opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And what you were talking about is the same thing. It was an obstacle. It just happened to be. We only get like 4 dreary days a year.
It doesn't happen.
It happens
often.
in June for some reason. I think it's because all the irrigation in this country, in this part of the world, and we get one cold snap and it just turns to fog, right?
Yep.
And it only happens, and you were here on that day. Otherwise, you'd have moved here and have been a completely different experience.
I may not have met my wife. Right, because I met my wife in Sheridan, Wyoming, after teaching in Hewlett for 3 years. The small class sizes eliminated the need for 2 English teachers. Well, I was the low man on the totem pole.
You hadn't had tenure yet.
Right. Well, I did.
Oh.
I just gained it. And but I was out of a job, and I applied. I remember driving on that trip. I drove through Sheridan and over the Bighorns on the way here.
Yeah.
And again, gorgeous country. And this time of year in the Bighorns, it's like better than Yellowstone as far as wildlife viewing.
We were just there last weekend.
Everywhere.
20 moose there's one stretch of highway that's just right along a river, and it's all willows. And we counted 20 moose on that stretch.
And as a guy coming from Michigan, I came out here to create a profession, but I wanted to live someplace where I could hunt elk. And big game, you're very limited with those opportunities in Michigan. And I thought, well, I'm going to be a teacher. There's no way in the world I'm ever going to hunt elk unless I live where they live. So that was a large.
You're not going to take time off from coaching and teaching in the fall.
Yeah, you can't. Maybe as an administrator, you'd have some vacation time that you could burn, but even then, you're tied. You're tied down. And so that was one of the biggest reasons. I'm like, I've always wanted to hunt elk, and I need to live where they live so I can do it. And we came over the Bighorns that day, and there were elk everywhere. There were moose everywhere. There was a bear ran across the road. I was just like, holy smokes. Yeah. I told my dad, I'm like, I will live in Sheridan someday. And that was exactly where I ended up. And that was where I met my wife. And I taught there in a little school named Bighorn for 2 years. And met my wife in Sheridan at the little First Baptist or Grace Baptist Church. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So then you moved from there, Bighorn, and moved to Thermop. What was the reasoning there? What was that red thread?
Yeah, so it's kind of, again, it's
Thermopolis, which
right. That's where you graduated.
Yeah, a little history. That's where I graduated. That's where the bulk of this company was really, it started in other parts of Wyoming, but it really, really came to, adulthood in Thermopolis, Wyoming.
This table that we're sitting at was the sign out in front of the company.
Yep. And it was, Thermopolis holds a place in my heart because that's where, when I was in 8th grade, we moved to Thermop, and I graduated high school there. Still have lots of good friends there. And it's a ton of great recreating.
Oh, man.
Versus Sheridan, which I've lived in both places.
Yeah, and having you and I kind of followed each other around the state unknowingly, and when you first pull into Sheridan, you think, wow, this is going to be incredible. The Bighorns are right here. And after you live there for a while, coming from someplace like Michigan, it was really cool. But coming from someplace like Hewlett, where I had unlimited opportunity to do stuff, Sheridan was pretty confining, actually. Because other than the limited amount of public ground to the east, the Bighorn Mountains were the only place that you could recreate. It was the only public land. And so
lots to do there, lots to explore.
There is. It's a beautiful place.
But it's not like, where I grew up in Thermop, in 10 minutes you could be on BLM shooting your guns, killing prairie dogs, doing fishing, unbelievable fishing.
Yep.
It's just different. I felt confined when I lived in Sheridan.
The waterfowl hunting alone.
Yes.
In Thermopolis at certain times of the year. It's not, Wyoming's unique that way. I feel like all the videos that you see of hunting waterfowl in the West are a little misleading. I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to go to Montana or Wyoming or Colorado and be covered up in birds. And it's not that way. You're looking at videos that are and content that's created in very specific areas of those states, just because of the lack of water overall in the West. And Thermopolis, having the river running right through town, attracts waterfowl in the winter, and they winter there in vast numbers.
Well, and the way the basin is built, the Bighorn Basin, it has a big funnel, and Thermopolis is at the bottom of it with the water. Right. And so if those waterfowl get stuck here because of weather, they end up down there waiting to get up over the mountains to keep going south.
Not to mention, because you think of the name itself, Thermopolis, there's hot springs there. Right. So the water there doesn't freeze. Mm-hmm. I mean, the river will ice up pretty good, but it's got to be really cold for that to happen. It's not like our river here that ices up. It's 20 below for 2 days. We're probably not hunting because our river ices up even as fast as it is because it's cold water. And down there's so much warm water that enters that river. Those waterfowl just hang out. It's like a jacuzzi down there for them. They love it. So that was an awesome place. I taught and coached there for 5 years and started working for Eastmans while I was there.
Yeah, you were the guy that wrote the editor and said, "Hey, do you guys need some help proofreading? Because I'm really tired of all the mistakes.
I
struggle reading this.
I'd
thing.
get my magazine, and it was like,
I'm teaching high school kids, and this is worse.
yeah,
Not really,
and
but,
it wasn't that bad,
but
there was just little things that needed some help, and
well,
you guys were shorthanded at
yes.
that time.
In the process, if you don't know the process, that our magazines are unique in that the front half of the magazine, the features, are all written by subscribers, and that subscriber could be a plumber, an electrician, it could be, he could be a carpet guy. The guy on the elk cover this year, he's a carpet guy, great guy,
Yeah,
but not schooled in the English language,
not a writer.
Yeah,
and
taking a high school teacher who's also teaching high schoolers to write and put their thoughts down, and helping these guys write these articles is really key. And it's a unique skill set. It really is. And understanding through the years, one of the biggest things that we've struggled with is you can over edit these articles and take the voice out of it.
Yeah. If I've got a guy, women actually are really good at putting voice into their stories by the way they write, and it's more honest in a lot of ways.
And they're more descriptive.
Yeah. And it's just interesting. It's a different perspective, but yeah, you can whitewash a story really easily if you're not careful and make it sound just like vanilla.
Yeah.
And so there is an art to it. There's a craft to it, but it's super rewarding to take somebody's hunt and help them craft it and turn it into something that they're going to be able to show their grandkids someday. I mean, look, I was in this magazine with this bull I shot or this mule deer I shot. That's just really fun, really rewarding thing to be able to do. But yeah, that's how that started. I started out
we were shorthanded.
proofing.
Yeah, we were shorthanded on the proofing side of the world.
Yeah.
And had a proofer retire, and we were looking for something, and you had just written an email to the managing editor saying, "Listen, I think you guys need some help. And
Well,
I'm
it was
looking for a little extra income as a teacher, coach."
Yeah.
Because that was about the time you quit coaching, wasn't it?
Yeah, right about then, I stepped down from my coaching position. And so,
God bless you coaches out there. I have high school and middle school kids. Oh my gosh, you poor bastards! Watching it. From the
crunched the
sidelines.
numbers one time, and I think I was making like 2 or 3 cents an hour.
Yeah, it's got to be. Not to mention the headache with parents and little, cocky kids.
You do it because you love it.
Yeah.
It's a passion, and you love the kids, and you love teaching and coaching, and that's why you do it.
And for all you parents out there, shut up, sit down, and watch a game. I'm going to get in trouble for that. I'll get hate.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And it was it's a good lesson for me to remember how it felt, because you can, especially as a basketball coach, you can hear everything that's being said about you in the stands behind you.
Yep.
And a lot of it, my wife quit coming to games because
I'll bet
she couldn't take it. She couldn't take listening to people talk about me like that. And it's not unique to one community.
No.
It's that way across the board. And so now that my kids are starting to be involved in athletics, I try really hard to just bite my tongue and watch. And if I get loud, it's encouraging.
Yeah.
I try to just be encouraging.
Yep.
Or if I got a little tidbit, but yeah, good point. Good point. Because that's a thankless job for sure. It's incredibly rewarding, but it doesn't matter if you win or lose. There's somebody's always going to be upset.
Yeah. And watching those kids grow, oh my gosh, just in one season, how much they learned from being coached properly, and the friendships they built and the leadership skills and all that stuff is really cool. So don't get me wrong, it's very important.
Oh, 100%.
But yeah. Anyway, so coach, managing editor, all while you're fishing, hunting. The first time I recall your face was when you were you actually had a story in the magazine.
My wife.
Yeah, it was just your wife's elk.
We got married and moved straight to Thermopolis as newlyweds. And she drew a primo elk tag that year. It was her first year ever hunting. And she shot a really nice bull. And I thought, man, I submitted to the magazine, and it made the cut, which we get hundreds of submissions. So to make the cut, to make it into a magazine is no small feat.
Yeah.
And I was pretty proud of that.
A lot of it has to do with photos.
Cool. A lot of it has to do with photos.
Everybody has a pretty good story. It's the photos that make
100%.
You can't recreate those.
Yeah, and we could do an entire podcast on how to take good photos of your hunt and your harvest, because we need both, right? Yes. We need both harvest photos, grip and grins, excuse me, and support imagery. So when you're out on a hunt, take a picture, of sunset or, interesting little details that help tell the story.
Or you glassing, or you walking.
String of horses, or, whatever it might be, just helps tell the story. And they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? Well, if you take enough pictures, somebody should be able to hand me their phone, and I should be able to thumb through their pictures of their hunt and get the gist of the story. Right. And then the written part of it is the little details that the pictures don't tell.
Right.
But
the feelings.
Right. We have those?
Well, on Tuesdays.
It's Thursday. We're out of luck.
So managing our. So I'm going to a couple things that we skimmed over that I want to go back to.
Okay.
Waterfowl hunting in the UP. You being part of the Wingman brand. It's not Wingman. It's Wingmen.
Yep.
Because it's multiple. It's meant to be a group.
Yep.
You did a lot of that in the UP?
Tons. We had
geese and duck, or
it was everything. The waterfowl hunting across Michigan can be pretty different depending on where you are. And I grew up in the woods. And so we had the St. Mary's River to hunt a little bit. We had some agriculture around us, which it's not like here, basically like oat fields and like you'd find in Canada. Mm-hmm. And because we were on that eastern end of the UP when I started hunting, we were right smack in the flyway. And so we would get first crack at birds right out of Canada. So it was pretty...
They hadn't been decoyed
times. Yeah, it was pretty epic hunting. I remember, I think about how we did it back then, and you could probably go up there and do it the same way, but you can't do that anywhere else.
Yeah.
But a lot of hunting beaver ponds and sloughs and swamps. So it was very, very different than out here. Very, very different, and very not boring, but very predictable in what birds you were going to shoot. You're going to shoot Canada geese, maybe a blue goose or two, probably some lessers. But on the duck side of things, it was mallards and wood ducks. Hmm. And if you hunted big water, you could shoot divers. And that part of the country is actually really well known for its diver hunting. But my dad was not a big water hunter. We hunted little stuff. And so it was puddle ducks and some black ducks mixed in every now and then. Teal early, but that part of the country's pretty far north and winter descends pretty rapidly, so they didn't stick around very long. But it was those four ducks, probably the three ducks we shot the most of, and that they still shoot the most of up there is wood ducks, black ducks, and mallards, with mallards taking up the bulk.
So a lot of the stuff that you learned, you obviously learned the fundamentals there for the wing side, but you've done a ton of that. Did you do a lot of it in Hewlett?
No.
Because there's not a ton.
No, there's very little. That goes back to what we were talking about hunting waterfowl in the West, period. It's feast or famine. Yeah. It's either birds or no birds. And Hewlett had very few birds. There would be birds on, stock ponds.
Yeah.
Not a little reservoir.
And agriculture.
No, it's ranching. That's ranching community over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, after we left the UP, I actually graduated high school in the Lower Peninsula.
I didn't know that.
Yep, in a little town called Hart, and right on Lake Michigan. And I went to school down there, went to college down there for a couple of years. And when I went back down to get my master's degree, I moved out of the UP after my bachelor's to get my master's. And that was, I think, where I really honed my waterfowl hunting skill set, especially dryland geese, hunting geese in cornfield, harvested cornfields. The season was long. It would start in September and run on and off until, through January. Wow. And so we hunted geese. That was what we did. And at one point, my brother and I, we were living together, and we had the big trailer full of decoys and blinds. And I mean, that was our passion. That is what we did. And I think we had permission to hunt like in 3 different counties when we counted up all the different properties that people would let us hunt. I was driving back and forth from where we lived to take classes working on my master's. So I would literally scout every day. And there was multiple times where I'd call him and be like, hey, so-and-so's field, 4 o'clock, let's do it. And he'd round up a group of dudes and we'd go mash geese. Yeah. You know, and so those years from what my dad taught us when we were kids, growing up hunting in the woods and fishing and just being in the outdoors all the time with dad and uncles and my grandfather, to then after all that, kind of my brother and I branching out and doing it on our own, that skill set really got honed when you have to start figuring stuff out and taking those elementary lessons that you were taught and lighting a fire under that and really going to the next level. I mean, we flirted with the idea of starting an outfitting business at one point. We were killing that many birds.
Wow.
And decided that we didn't want to mess with it. But yeah, we did really well on the geese.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Eberly Stock. Eberly Stock is one of my favorite backpacks. Now, I've been wearing their backpack for almost 20 years. They have lightweight backpacks. They have modular backpacks, everything from their main frame, which is just a frame pack that you can put bags on. They have these cool outside called bat wings that you can use. So check them out at eberlystock.com and make sure you tell them Ike sent you. This episode is sponsored by Fold AR. Have you ever wanted to carry a little more firepower than just a pistol? In the current trying times, it'd be nice to have an AR that fits in a backpack the size of a briefcase. Fold AR has solved that problem for you. They come in a few different versions, fold-in half rifles, fold-in thirds, and even an AR pistol. Don't worry about finding the perfect backpack to fit them in. They come in a backpack specifically built just for them and looks like a small backpack. Fold ARs don't just fold up and conceal easily, but they are very safe and will hold their own at the range. Fold AR is the perfect combination of concealment and firepower.
That's one thing that I've always appreciated about you, Todd. And when you start having kids, I thought, well, that'll slow this down. But you were constantly out doing stuff.
Try to.
Every Monday morning, we come into our office and we sit down and eat breakfast as a group and kind of just talk about what's going to happen on this week and what happened the weekend and, you know, basketball, football, whatever hot topic there is.
Right.
And every week hey, I went to Yellowstone. Me and the family drove through Yellowstone. I saw this, or we went to the Bighorns and went on a hike and we saw this, or we went turkey hunting. I mean, your daughters just killed their first turkeys this year. And, I mean, Ennis is a kindergartner.
Ennis is 6 years old. She's my middle kid. And JC's my oldest, and she's 9. She just turned 9. And we decided last winter that she wanted to try to shoot a goose. And we got the little 410 out and the Federal premium ammo and went out and she shot a goose with it. And it was pretty cool. Had to have a little help finishing it, but got it. So it was like, okay, let's do the turkey thing. And Wyoming's great about that. Lots of opportunity for kids. And so we got her set up, got her a tag, went and practiced with the gun, and holy smokes, she was a deadeye.
Yeah.
And we called in a bird here local. First time we went out, called in a gobbler, and she killed him. And it was very exciting. As a dad, that was like, there's only one first like that, you know, and it's like, yeah, that's so cool. Well, then I was planning a turkey hunt to the Hewlett country, just me and Ennis. Said that backwards, just Ennis and I.
Sorry, bad influence.
Yeah. Just as a trip to do. And I got talking to a buddy over there, and he said, well, does she want to try to shoot a turkey? And I thought, man, she's 6 years old. I don't even think the gun fits her. He's like, well, there's a whole pile of ranchers over here that'll let a kid shoot a turkey. Not you,
Right.
but a kid.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't care if I shoot another one. We filmed an awesome episode in Montana already
Right.
this year. I got the content I need. So I thought, well, let me see if the gun fits her first. Sure enough, got the red dot on it, and so she's like, I can see the dot, Daddy. I said, can you reach the trigger? Yep. Well, might as well go try.
Well,
Took her up, put a turkey target on a box up on the bench, and she proceeded to just light that thing up for about 20 minutes. Fast as I could load that gun, she'd pull the trigger, and she never missed. Every shot was a kill shot on that target. And I'm thinking, well, okay. So I called my buddy back. I said, yeah, we're going to come, and she wants to try. So we went into Cody, the Game and Fish. I did it with both the girls. I'll do the same thing with my son. First license, we go to the Game and Fish office, set up the account, and they get the hat, and they get the picture holding their license in front of the grizzly bear in the entryway. Just cool,
I didn't know they did that.
Yeah. You can do that. You can do that there.
I have to do that.
Yep. It's kind of neat. It's kind of neat because they walk in and it's this big, beautiful building, and it's an experience. Just kind of adds to the hunt. And so we went over, and the first morning we had to wait a little bit, but got a group of Jakes coming, and they walked in and got to 30 yards, and I wasn't sure they were going to come any closer. And I said, are you on him? He's like, I'm on him. I said, well, shoot him. I covered her ears because I forgot the ear pro that morning. So I covered her ears. I'm like, shoot him. Boom. She drops him, turns around, says, got him. Just got him.
Yeah.
Like,
matter of fact.
Man alive.
Yeah,
so
that's cool. Well, it's been fun to watch. I mean, you're taking your kids everywhere and getting them out there, which is, as a parent, we're all very, our audience, I think they would agree that we're very hobby oriented. This is a way of life. And when you have kids, you worry that you're going to lose that way of life. And you're a testament that you don't have to. Does it change? Yes. I mean, were you as intense on Ennis's turkey hunt as you were in Montana? Probably not.
Well, I had to be intense on that hunt because I had reekers with me.
Well, that's true. Yeah,
pretty much like it's like having a kid.
Yeah, it's like hunting with a child.
I'm sorry, Scott. I couldn't resist.
So that's really cool. So let's touch on Alaska just a little bit.
Okay.
You went up there as a commercial fisherman, and you kind of skimmed across that 2 years or 2 seasons, I guess it would really be.
Yeah, it wasn't up. It wasn't. It's not quite years because I didn't stay year round.
Right.
It was summer months, basically.
So what did you do up there, and why did you go up there, and why did you decide this wasn't it? We kind of touched on that too.
Yeah, I was sitting around with a degree in my pocket, working, part-time jobs, substitute teaching, and I was selling annuities as a licensed life and health insurance agent, working at Gander Mountain, and bored. And thinking, man, there's got to be, I needed adventure. And I was 24 the first year I did it. And some family friends have a fish site, a set net site on Kodiak Island. So it's not like I wasn't on a big boat or anything.
This isn't deadliest catch fishing.
No. Still dangerous. It's still adventure, but not like that. And so you're working a gill net set that's anchored on one end on the shore. So I called them and asked if they needed help. And they said, yeah, we'd love to have you come up. And that was in 2004 was the first time I went. And I went up and just first time I'd ever seen mountains, was flying into Anchorage and was just blown away. Kodiak, Alaska's incredible, but Kodiak is a whole nother level of incredible. Mm-hmm. It really is. And you can't even, pictures don't do it justice. You just have to go see it to really, truly appreciate it. And I had a ton of fun. And we worked incredibly long, incredibly hard hours. I've probably touched more fish than you've ever seen. You know what I mean? One of those deals. It's just kind of what you did.
Is it salmon?
It was red salmon. Yeah. Yep. That was what we were after. But I got the full experience because my boss realized he was a teacher. An industrial arts teacher, shop teacher. And he realized that coming from Michigan, he grew up there, and coming from Michigan, that this needed to be an adventure. It wasn't just a job. and I needed the full experience.
Right.
And he made sure I had lots of time to play and explore. And honestly, I did some things that were probably pretty stupid, but I learned from it. You know, incredible place, incredible experience. I ended up going back in 2006. I was working. I decided to be a teacher at that point. I had started working on my master's, and I thought, I want one more adventure before I settle down completely. Grabbed a buddy, and we went up and tag teamed it, and it's the same thing. We had even more fun. And it's wild because there's a show on Disney Plus, that it's called The First Alaskans. Oh, yeah. There's all those Alaska shows, right? There's The Last Alaskans, the Alaskan Next Generation. Well, this is The First Alaskans, and it's all Native peoples. And I'm watching, kind of, oh, that's cool. And I'm watching the show the other night, well, months ago, and I hear this voice, and I think to myself, I recognize that voice. And then it pans over in the scenery. I'm like, I know that spot. And it was a Native guy named Marvin who lives in a village down the bay from where I was. And I heard Marvin's voice every morning on the radio. After the weather report, after the fish report, he'd be on there trying to raise his uncle. And then they'd go over to another channel, and I'm watching this show going, that's the guy that taught me how to catch octopus when the tide's low. You look for a big rock. And so let me back up for a second. We were out just tide pooling, and we were down by where Marvin lives. And he comes walking up the beach, and we're just kicking around looking at stuff. You know, I don't know anything. It's just all these creatures and doing stuff. And I'm like, that's cool. I don't have those in Lake Superior, you know. And Marvin walks up and you know, what are you guys doing? And I said, oh, we're just hanging out. You want to catch an octopus? I said, sure. And
don't say no to that.
Yeah. We walk over to this great big boulder, and he points out there's a little divot of water, probably the size of the lid of this coffee cup, where there's just a little pool of water at the base of this rock. And it's surrounded by mussel shells with a hole tapped in them from the beak of the octopus. And he's like, there's an octopus in there. You can see by the way the water's kind of fluctuating a little bit. He's in there. Breathing. Oh, okay. Thinking, what's the octopus like this big? You know, it's a tiny little spot. He had a 5-gallon bucket with a little thing of bleach and a section of garden hose about 3 feet long. And he stuck that garden hose in there. He's like, yeah, he's in there. That's squishy. And he's like, feel. I took the hose and and you could feel that octopus in there. It was squishy.
Like you were pushing on a stuffed animal.
Yeah, more like a water balloon almost.
Okay.
Just kind of a weird feeling, but you could tell there was something in there. And he took a cap full of bleach, poured it in the hose, and then went and blew that bleach down the hose and hit that octopus. That octopus came out from underneath that rock so fast. It wasn't funny. And it was like an 8-foot-long octopus.
Oh, my gosh.
It was not a small. I'm thinking this little tiny spot. No, this thing was huge. And he hooks it with a gaff and literally turns it inside out on his arm like a sock, and then takes the beak off, and he kills it. And he throws it in the bucket. And this thing comes out, and it is bright red, blood red when it comes out from under the rock. He throws it in a white 5-gallon pail, and it turns white that fast.
Really?
Yeah. And he says, my wife will eat these raw, but I like to cook them. And I'm just like, I'm standing there watching this going,
what the hell did I just watch?
Yeah, right. And watching TV the other night, there's Marvin. And he's doing the same thing he did with me. He's passing on knowledge and his native traditions to a whole new generation of people. And I'm going, that is so cool.
Do you eat this? How do you eat an octopus? You didn't sit around for dinner?
No, we weren't invited for dinner.
There's not enough octopus for the two of us.
But I was shocked at that whole experience. It was, it was something that you don't see every day. And I guarantee you I could go roam around on a flat and probably catch an octopus that way because of what that guy taught me.
Right.
And so to see him doing that on TV, it's just cool. Anytime you get to do that. I was watching another video the other night, a hunting video, a brown bear hunting video, and they were on Kodiak, and I'm same thing. I'm recognizing the scenery. And I'm like, oh man, I think I know where they are. And on one of my adventures, we hauled a canoe through this. I carried the canoe. My buddy carried the supplies. We hauled this canoe through this mountain pass from the ocean into this lake that's nestled in the mountains. And then there's an outlet to another lake, and then that empties into the ocean. And we got picked up after, I think it was 3 days we were in there, 2 days. I can't remember how many. I think it was a day, 2 days and a night. Anyway, we get in there. I haul this canoe, the things you do in your 20s when you're young and dumb and strong, right? And nobody had ever done it before. And to this day, I'm not sure anybody's ever done that. Hauled this canoe in there, carried it on my back, put it in the lake, paddled down to the far of the lake, and we're just asleep on the tundra, right? We got a tarp. There are Kodiak brown bears because it's a salmon run, and we're there to catch rainbow trout. It was one of the few places around where you could catch trout. That's why we were in there. Well, we'd passed a bear hunting cabin halfway back up the lake earlier in the day. We got to the beach at the outlet of the lake, and I was like, there's no way we're sleeping out in the open.
Yeah.
Dude. I was like, we're either just going to paddle on through and go out, make this a really fast trip, or we're sleeping in that cabin.
Right.
And lo and behold, this video I'm watching, they pan over and there's the cabin. And I'm like, oh, I'm hollering at my wife, Grace, Grace. And I grab my photo album, open it up, and I'm a picture of me and my buddy standing on the deck of that cabin. And it's the same cabin. And they're bear hunting out of it.
Still doing the same thing they've done.
Yeah.
20 years ago.
And they've been hosting bear hunts out of that cabin forever. And it's a tiny little thing. But notes written in Sharpie on the wall. There's a line of brass, big stuff. 375, 416 Remington, 458 Winchester, big bear hunting rounds.
Right.
Lined on the windowsill, the history, the walls could talk kind of a thing. And just to be able to see stuff like that you've experienced yourself is pretty cool. And there's been some stuff here in Wyoming that's been the same way.
Yeah. Sense of adventure. So Alaska, let's talk about, speaking of adventures, we went down, one of the sponsors that we share is Cryptic, right?
Right.
Cryptic has a line of waterfowl camo and clothing, and they also do the big game side, which I'm more on the big game side than the waterfowl side. But they invited us to come down, Cryptic did, to a goose hunt, a snow goose hunt, which I had no idea what the heck I was getting into. I waterfowl hunted because I grew up in Thermop. We talked about that. We waterfowl hunted, but honestly, we were really spoiled because I knew all the ranchers. I graduated with their kids or grandkids. I could hunt anywhere, pretty much do anything we wanted to on the river. And so a waterfowl hunt consisted of us going down to the big red rocks, and we'd show up right before daylight. We'd shoot a limit of stuff, and before the sun actually hit the water, we'd be eating breakfast at my buddy's grandma's house that was 100 yards away.
Right.
That's what a waterfowl hunt was for us.
Right.
We never did the layout blinds or anything like that because I never had to. So I didn't really know what we were going to get into when Cryptic invited us on a snow goose hunt. And you're like, you've been planning this for a long time. You were excited, and I could. I'd met
the outfitter. Yeah, did a podcast with him, and it was Butch Whiting. Actually, is the one that orchestrated the podcast I did with Mike Tracy from Platte Basin Outdoors. Right. And so I went down and filmed a goose hunt with him in Colorado, and then we hatched this idea while we were down there to do this snow goose hunt.
Right,
and that's how it all came together.
Well, I knew I was in for something because you and Brandon, who because of a camera guy got sick, Brandon he was in the bullpen.
Demoted.
Yeah, demoted to being just camera guy. He did a great job.
He's good at it.
But he's from North Dakota, so he knew what the hell he was getting into.
Yes.
I had no idea. But I knew you both were really excited about it, so I was like, well, I'm going to go. It's not a great time of year for me to be gone, but I'm going to go. And
there's never a good time of year for you to be gone.
There isn't. But Butch Whiting, the CEO of Cryptic, was going to be there, and the COO from Cryptic was going to be there. And so it was going to be kind of an executive. It'd be fun, right?
Right.
And drove all the way down there, 14 hours or whatever. in the truck, and snow geese everywhere. We happened to end up in Kearney when the sandhill cranes were coming through.
That was
They were coming
impressive.
back from down south, which deafening.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We could hear them
deafening.
through the truck while we were driving down I-80.
Yeah, it was crazy, but it was really neat. And then got down there, and the first day was kind of oh-hum. I think we killed 15 geese.
Yeah, it wasn't great. The weather was the weather was not good, and they'd had a big push of birds go north.
Yeah.
And it wasn't great. And I could tell, I'm sitting there and I've hyped this hunt up, and I've got the boss man with me, and I'm trying to, I want this to be epic, and it's pretty slow. And I'm going, oh my gosh, we drove all the way down here, and I hyped this up, and this is, and the outfitter was, you could see it all over him too. He's like, oh my gosh, we put all this together, and the hunting's going to be crap.
But it's hunting, but I learned a lot. I learned that snow geese, contrary to their name, do not like snow.
Right.
And so they follow the snow line.
Right.
If they follow the snow line as it goes north, and then if it starts coming south, they'll go back down south.
And that's what we got across. The third day.
Yeah. The second day, first day was okay. Second day it snowed.
We sat in the lodge
snowed
all day.
Yeah. It was snow. And then, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, hope we can get home and all that stuff. And then, the weather report said, yeah, Saturday's going to be a beautiful day. And by gosh, we got in the blind and just hammered them.
Yep.
50 some birds that day.
And we didn't even hunt
we
didn't even hunt a full day.
No, because some of the guys had to leave.
Yep.
And so, yeah, we had 3 flats of shotgun shells. The old federal ammunition went out the barrel. I got to the point where I didn't even care. When you snow goose hunt, you don't really aim for a bird. You aim for the birds. And you just empty 9 rounds in that thing?
8 round.
Yeah.
8 round extensions.
And you just empty them every single time and load them back up and start again. And Platte Basin had unbelievable dogs and great guys that knew what the hell they were doing and calling and all of that stuff.
Yep.
It was a lot of fun, an absolute blast.
Yep.
But to say that you were nervous was a little.
Well, the best part is I didn't fall apart, but the best, no, I didn't. But the best part or the worst part, depending on how you're looking at this, was loading up the guns the first morning. And I had installed the magazine extensions
days before
and made sure they worked. Like I test ran them. I went through those guns with a fine-tooth comb. I tested them. Like everything's flawless.
Savage Renegade with an extender on it. It's gonna work. It's gonna work. It's gonna work.
No problem. Well, I wanted to put the Tacticam on the gun,
which is just a camera that
and it
fits
pinched.
on the barrel.
Yep, and it's got a barrel fitting like a clamp. And I was going to put it on the magazine extension tube.
Yeah, because you can't reach the barrel.
Yeah, I couldn't. The guns wouldn't function. And you're like, because I put one on your gun too, and you're over there struggling, and I'm going,
these aren't feeding.
This isn't feeding.
This
and mine
turned into a single shot.
And then mine wasn't feeding, and I'm like, I just tested these before we came. And then I went and I took it off, and I took the Tacticam off, and it just happened to take it off, and the gun fed flawlessly. And I went, huh. It was the Tacticam clamp was just enough pressure.
It wouldn't let the spring.
It wouldn't let the spring move in the gun. So we scratched the Tacticams, took them off, and the guns worked flawlessly. But that morning, I am literally.
As the
I was mortified. I was mortified, and he's chuckling like you're laughing, going. Well, this is about what I thought it was going to be. And I'm thinking, oh, my gosh,
Yeah, a complete mess. No, it was fun, though. It was, if you get the chance to go on a goose hunt, I hope I get invited back because it was so much fun. And I know my brother, I think, is quoted by saying this when he went on his first blind hunt. He goes, this is not hunting. This is a coffee clutch. This is a coffee club. The old boys sitting around in the cafe every morning complaining about the weather, good or bad.
Yep.
and with shotguns, and every once in a while you shoot a bunch of birds.
Yep.
I mean, it is a lot of fun. We get in the blind with some guys that you really like, and you're hacking it up and
Oh, yeah.
and joking with each other.
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah, you're throwing shade at people all day long, and you're getting as well as you're.
Yeah.
You know, if you're
Making
a
it
good
greasy.
dude, if you're a good if you're a good dude, you're receiving as much as you're giving. You know what I mean? It's going back and forth. Yeah, to quote one of the guides at Platte Basin Outdoors, John Bernelli, it gets greasy.
Yeah, it gets greasy. He's got his own language, but it was fun. It was a good time. Well, so what's coming down the pipe? I know summer you're going to start fishing. You do a ton of fly fishing, and still guide a little bit on the Bighorn.
A little here and there. I actually turned down, I think, 4 trips already this year because it just hasn't worked with my schedule.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be out on the river tomorrow, and had to call the boss man and be like, dude, I got family commitments and it's one of those deals where I enjoy the guiding. I don't want to do it like I did when I was teaching. No, but I still enjoy it. Yeah. And I like helping him out. And I feel guilty anytime I say, dude, I can't do this one, because I know he's scrambling to find people to help. But it's fun, and we've gotten to do a little bit of that together. Mm-hmm. We took the guys from Raised Hunting. Yeah,
we did a couple podcasts with them. And
I am stoked to see the video that they did. They filmed a video down there, and we watched a little bit of footage that night at dinner.
Unbelievable.
Some of the most amazing trout fishing footage I've ever seen.
Well, it was really fun because, I'm going to circle all this up. Todd, you have a teacher's heart. You love teaching people stuff. And if it's, bushcraft stuff, or if it's hunting, or if it's fishing, or if it's wingman, whatever it is, you love doing that, and you're really good at it. It is your God-given talent.
I appreciate that.
It was fun to take these guys. I put the kid that had never fly fished in your boat because I knew you'd be good at it, and you guys were able to catch fish on his first day, and nice fish, and get epic, unbelievable footage. It was better than I could have ever imagined it. And those guys are just good people.
Yeah, they're phenomenal guys. Phenomenal guys.
Yeah, a lot of fun. And we talked a lot about business. They've been in the industry a long time. Mm-hmm. And they're just good people. And it was a lot of fun taking fishing. So yeah, hopefully I get to see it. I mean, geez, it's almost been a year. And
I would imagine they're going to do I hope they do something with it. Yeah. Because they got, and I think they know they got good stuff, but I don't think they realize how good they got.
Yep.
When you're getting slow motion eats on dry flies, full frame, and not just one, multiples of that. Those camera guys they had were dialed.
Yep.
And you can watch any fly fishing production on YouTube, and they don't have what those guys captured
they
that day.
That kind of content.
No.
Yeah, it was really fun. So fishing this summer.
Yep.
Of course, tons and tons of camping. You're a wall tent.
I like to camp, and I'm not a camper snob, so.
I spend enough time.
Does a Todd poop in the woods?
Yeah.
No, we're actually talking about doing a conversion on just a cargo trailer. Mm-hmm. Buying something, putting some windows in it, a roof vent in it, and like a 7x14, big enough I can haul stuff with it and then still sleep in it if I want to. I've got bunk bed cots, and they're 6.5 feet long. So a 14-foot trailer, I could put 2 of them on one wall and then another cot over the other side. You're going to spend 90% of your time outside anyway. And so you put up
those 1 or 2 crappy hours.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to get in out of the weather. And the wall tent's great for that. We like it, but having children that are 9, 6, and 3, there's not a lot of help there. And so Mom and I we're setting up the whole thing ourselves.
It takes you 4 hours, and you look at yourself and go, "Was this?
Why did we do this?"
Yeah,
and
4 hours to camp 2 nights, and then 4 hours to tear it all back.
And we're fortunate because of where we live, we can leave it up. Yeah. And a lot of folks in the national forest will leave their campers up. You got to move them like every 14 days. Yeah. But you get 2 solid weekends out of it. And summertimes, we're still we're a little slower in the summer around here, and we work 4-day weeks. So having 3-day weekends to go up and play in the mountains with the kids, and we go fishing and we hike. It's a great time of year to get your hunting legs under you.
Mm-hmm.
You throw a backpack on and you go hike into cool places and take the kids, and you're getting your workout in at the same time.
Yeah. So lots of camping. What do we got going on, Wingman? I know you did a good turkey hunt that's going to come out.
Yeah, had a great turkey season. I didn't film either of the girls' hunts. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want that added pressure.
I think that's a good thing.
Yep.
I didn't film my oldest daughter's first deer hunt.
Right.
I did film the antelope hunt, but we didn't do the deer hunt. I wanted it to be impactful, and I didn't want, that just adds a level of complexity. I wanted it to be a good experience so that she would continue doing it, and it worked because she let us film her antelope hunt.
Right.
Which was.
Yeah, and my girls have been on camera before
Mm-hmm.
in Wingman videos, and so have your daughters.
Yep.
And so they get that, but I wanted that experience to just be us, just for us. And it's funny, though, because we film virtually everything we do, I kind of missed being able to go back and watch the kill shot again.
Yeah.
And some of the moments of that would have been cool to have. But sometimes you just got to, I think it was Anthony Bourdain, he said that in life's adventures, when something happens and you don't take a picture of it or you don't get it recorded, that's okay to just sit back and replay it in your head and enjoy that memory and soak that in. And that's a pretty impactful thing, because in today's world, we film everything, not just for our jobs, but I'm filming Kindergarten Circus the other day, on my phone. It's just what we all do.
Yeah, it is way different than when you and I growing up. I mean, I have like
a Polaroid snapshot.
7 photos of me as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Most of them were Halloween.
Right.
And so now there's 7 photos of my kids every day.
I know.
Stuff.
I know.
It's
just the world we live in, right?
Yeah. So, well, I appreciate you coming on. I do have a couple questions that now that we know who you are, we can get some little perspective on why you answered it this way. So we talked a lot about hunting, and so why do you hunt? What is the driving force on why you hunt, why you continue to hunt, and why you're teaching your kids to hunt?
The answer to that depends a lot on what I'm hunting. And if I'm hunting, sometimes it's for work, to be quite honest. The waterfowl stuff, the turkey hunting stuff, I love it. I'd be doing it if I wasn't filming it for work, but so some of it's for work, and that adds a level of pressure because you've got to do things right. You have to capture content. We have contracts that we have to maintain, or I shouldn't say have to. We get to.
That's a good way to put it.
And so many times, I have to do this. No, we get to. So sometimes it's for work. I enjoy that. I love it. A lot of time with the family, when I'm on a family hunt, which we do a lot of, it's for food and for fun. The kids loved antelope hunts, especially like antelope doe hunts.
Yeah.
Ton of fun with the family. Just no pressure. It's fun. If you screw up a stalk, there's 5 more standing over there. You can go get a stalk on them. And the kids my whole family loves to eat antelope. It's the first thing gone out of the freezer. And so there's the food aspect, 100%, and family time and the tradition of it. A big part for me anymore is in the big game hunts is the adventure of it. It's like when I draw, I'm not like our producer Luke, who can apply once for a sheep tag in Wyoming and draw it.
Yeah, the 0.0125%
unbelievable
chance of drawing a sheep tag. And
so when and if I ever draw a sheep tag, it'll be for a unit here locally. And there's a point in that season where a lot of times you could shoot a ram right off the road.
Yeah.
Late in the season. I don't want to do that. The whole point of a sheep tag for me and for that type of hunting is adventure. I want to load up the horses. I want to go back in someplace. I want to get face to face with a grizzly bear, and I want the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so much of our daily lives are scripted. We're on autopilot. Even if you're being intentional, which you're an intentional dad, you're an intentional man, I feel like I try to do the same
100%.
thing. Have a plan. I know what I want to accomplish and where I want to go. Hunting is a way to set that aside for a minute and go and be in an environment that I love, doing something that I love, and making memories and capturing adventure all at the same time. And that's why I hunt.
Yeah,
that's why I hunt.
That's great. I think a lot of us are that way, even if we don't recognize it. I mean, I've asked that question to literally, dozens of people, and that it's all kind of the same thing. It's the adventure. It's the separation yourself from the day to day and just getting back to nature.
Yep.
And what really matters in the world.
That you talk about the stages of a hunter. When you're first starting out, you just want to go,
yeah.
right? Then very quickly that usually progresses into you want to get something, whatever it is you're hunting. You want to take. You want to be successful, and then that usually progresses into a lot of times that'll go one of two ways. But more often than not, hunters will go, I want to shoot a limit of something, or I have to fill my tag, or whatever it might be. You want a lot of it. You want a lot of success. And then that has a tendency to peter off into, I want a certain type of success. It's like, I want to shoot mallards, but I want to do it in a cornfield when it's snowing.
Right.
And it's not necessarily, Hemingway said, if you've shot one bird flying, you've shot them all flying. And he's totally right in that regard. So when it comes to waterfowl hunting, especially, or wing shooting in general, it's about destinations. I want to go here. I want to go to Nebraska and do a snow goose hunt. I want to go back to Canada and do a snow goose hunt. Mm-hmm. I want to go, I'd love to take you to South Dakota or Montana someplace on a just epic pheasant hunt.
Right.
Those are the experience. Then it's more about the adventure and the experiences. And then finally I'm kind of I feel like I'm in two stages at once. I'm in that destination phase and the how it's done phase, but I'm also in I get way more enjoyment out of watching somebody else do it phase. Mm-hmm. I teach it. If I never shot another turkey and could watch my wife and my kids do it all the time, I'd be perfectly happy. Yeah. It's
funny.
Lights my fire.
It's like redefining success
right.
as you, and I don't want to say mature in hunting, because I think they're all mature. I think they're all good reasons to hunt. You were talking about the stages. I think it's as you progress, or as you move through the stages of hunting, you redefine success.
Right.
What success is. I just want to go out. I just want to get something. Now I want to, now I'm redefining it into what that something has to be, or the conditions.
Right.
And then I'm redefining, do I really have to be the one behind the trigger? Or can I just go along and teach that knowledge I've learned from that, story, or from that walk of hunting? So that's really cool. The other question is, when and if you get the opportunity to be on a deathbed, God willing, you don't get hit by a bus.
What do you mean when and if?
Well, because you're either, if deathbed is like I'm facing it, versus
you get hit by a bus,
versus
right. Or killed by a grizzly bear, just out of the blue,
They're like Sam Sohol, die in a helicopter, something.
Oh man!
So if you get that opportunity to be on a deathbed and have some time to reflect, what are you going to be reflecting on?
What kind of Christian example I left for my kids and the folks around me, what my testimony would be. Obviously none of us are perfect, and I'm far from perfect, but I'm saved by grace through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ on the cross. And that's what I would want to talk about on my deathbed. I know for a fact I don't talk about it enough in my daily life, and God has put people in front of me that I've missed the opportunity to witness to them. And I think back on some of those. I had a very close friend that we danced all around it on our hunting trips, and I didn't ever really come out and flat witness to him. And I that haunts me. It's like you've got the cure for cancer and you're going to keep it to yourself. No, Jesus is the cure for everything. And I know I don't do a good enough job sharing that with people. And so, yeah. It's a good way to look at it and be like, holy smokes, I need to do better at that.
So I've been I'm doing a podcast with Willie Robertson,
Uh-huh.
and it's coming up in a couple months. And of course, he's written a book, and he's been on a lot of podcasts and his own podcasts and talking about that very thing and how to do it your way. You don't always have to be, the evangelist
Right.
type. It's defining and recognizing those opportunities and taking advantage of them. I'm super excited to be sitting down.
Yeah, that would be that would be really cool. Those guys are obviously heroes of mine. Yeah. I started watching Phil Robertson's stuff when I was in high school, when he first started making videos, and he had a profound impact on me as a duck hunter, but also as a man. His testimony, and then that's carried over into their success as a family. Yes. And it's very evident in who they are, and it's a good example. As a Christian man, that is a really good example to follow. And and I think God puts how you handle each situation on your heart at the same time. I'm going to talk to you differently than I'm going to talk to somebody else.
Right.
And ultimately, I need those words.
Right.
Yeah,
for sure. Last question, maybe a little bit deeper, or I don't know, it might be funny. I've had a couple guys that just shocked me. I was like, that is hilarious. I would love to listen to that. Last question is, if you had the opportunity to do a TED Talk, an 18-minute talk.
A Todd Talk?
A Todd Talk. Todd TED Talk. What would you do it on?
Oh, man. I got 15 minutes.
18
minutes to do a TED Talk.
Todd can fill 18 minutes in 1 or 2 breaths, probably.
3.
6-minute breaths.
Yep. Big ones.
And it doesn't have to be something that you're passionate. It has to be something you're passionate about, but not, you don't have to be the most, you don't have to be an expert at it, the knowledge of it.
Right.
It's just something that
you want to talk
really
about.
Interested in, that you would do a ton of research and be able to do an elevator.
Living with passion for whatever it is that you're passionate about. I would pick, there's a lot of things I'm passionate about, and my passions have changed over time. I mean, always have been passionate about hunting and fishing, especially wing shooting. Passionate about dogs. Passionate about my family now. Passionate about my faith. And I would talk about how to live a life that exudes passion. Just flat out, pick your passion and don't stifle it. You want your kids to follow in your footsteps, show them your passions. Show them your emotions. That's the beautiful thing about having a family. They have to forgive you, right? At least that's what I've been told.
God, I hope so.
No, but be passionate for whatever it is. And I would talk about that, because I think life is hard, man, and it sucks in a lot of ways. And if you don't have something that you're passionate about, life's going to really be hard. You have to have something that you look forward to. Yeah. Even if it's your work, which is part of my passion. I get to come and do this every day. Well, not every day, thank God, but you know what I mean? There's days when it's work flat out and it's a job, but holy smokes, I'm not digging ditches.
Right.
I get to do what I love and what I'm passionate about every single day. And it was the same when I was a teacher and a coach. I was doing something I was passionate about, helping people. But living a life with passion would be what I would talk about. That would be a ton of fun, because I think there's a lack of that. In today's world, we get beat down with schedules. We get beat down with bad news, a 24-hour news cycle. I don't care which side of the political fence you're riding. There's always bad news.
Well, even social media. I mean, social media, there's a time and place for it, but if it's what you're spending most of your time on, that means you're not passionate, not doing something passionate that you're passionate about.
Right.
Passionately. You're not doing something passionately that you're passionate about.
Yep. Live life passionately. I told my wife when we got married, actually, no, I didn't tell her this. My mother told her this. A life with Todd is going to be like a roller coaster ride. It's going to be the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, and you're never going to know what's coming next. Just enjoy the ride, because it's going to be fun overall.
And your wife's, she was named beautifully for
Oh my goodness. I've never met a woman. My wife's name is Grace, and I've never met a woman that embodies her name so well.
Yes.
We joke, the kids, you got to choose like spirit animals, right? They don't believe in that, but Daddy, what would mommy be? And hands down, they're like, my oldest is like, mommy's a mule deer doe.
Yeah.
Just chill
Yep.
all the time.
Never panicked about anything, even in the
standing on the side of the road next to traffic, just watching stuff happen. Not like a whitetail that goes sprinting out into it.
Yeah. I think I could do that.
Yeah,
that's you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me. This
Sharing
was
your
fun.
story. I think the audience, have a new appreciation for who you are and where you came from, and understanding why the Wingman brand is so important and why you're so passionate about it, and why it's growing so fast.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you for having me. This was fun. We get to see each other all the time, but to sit down and do something intentional is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.